Hi, dessert.
Okay, look.
The film sucked. The film sucked. Okay, guys, we're here for the
First of all, I want to say this.
Force Awakens.
Red pie, dessert.
Okay, hold on.
Okay, we're here, guys, for the
Let's try and have some order on this one. Okay, let's try.
So basically, Force Awakens review here, hangout. I think we did 2 hangouts before previewing the film and also reviewing the teaser trailer. So I believe all people have watched the film. I don't have that much to say about the film. I mean, my views are so deep that all I can pretty say from my views that it's one of the worst films I've seen in recent memory. But obviously we have the Mech over here, we've got Phantom of Hope over here, we've got ICQ Pimp over here, and we've got Richard Ronin over here. So we've got people from the Talksmack crew all here coming in to talk about said film. So obviously I don't know who wants to kick things off.
Yeah, okay, so look, first off, okay, Merc here, it's been a while. Obviously, the last time I was on Talkback, we were previewing, actually, we're talking about the trailer. I think we were talking about the trailer, and also sort of somewhat of a preview. I think, as Half Hope said, Half Hope, myself, and look, so much has been said already. Okay, look, I watched this movie at midnight, opening night. I bought my tickets 2 months ago, pre-booked, middle of the cinema, and God, I mean, I don't even know where to begin. Like, I don't actually know how to begin this. Okay, look, basically,
Okay, go ahead.
Put it this way: this is easily, easily one of the one of the worst I felt coming out of a theater in my life. I think I just start off with that. Like, I think in my entire life, and I'm an old man, I think this is probably one of the worst feelings I've had coming out of a theater. But I'll let other guys begin with the actual details of the movie itself. But that's just my emotional response to the picture.
So yeah, who wants to take the floor? Phantom of Hope, Justin.
ICQ here.
ICQ, all right. Hit it.
Emotional response. That's exactly it. My first impression, and it was the first character we all see, other than Max von Sydow's character, is Poe Dameron. Oscar Isaac, a guy who I first laid eyes on back in, if I'm correct, it was 2011 in Sucker Punch. I'll raise my hand. I'm guilty. I saw Sucker Punch in theaters, and the one thing I noticed about Sucker Punch then, and even still, as I just admitted this to for the first time to you guys, Oscar Isaac is a talent. Like, every American movie or production has like a non-American in it nowadays. That guy may be the best American actor going right now, and to see him, and he was the first, he's one of our new main characters, to see him speak that Michael Bay-esque fucking, excuse my language, who's that shitty, Damon Lindelof dialogue, that Prometheus level penis alien killing dialogue, I couldn't believe it. You talk about emotional responses. I heard that. He's cracking wise to
Kylo Ren.
Yeah, Kylo Ren. I'm like, are you serious? It didn't even feel like as bad as those prequels were, and they were bad. A guy said it perfectly back in Ain't Cool in the Talkback. As bad as those movies were, they at least felt like, among at least being original, as original as a prequel can be, they felt like Star Wars movies. That's why I mentioned the comment about John Williams dropping the ball, and I won't even hold it against him. I mean, Abrams will suck the life out of you, It felt like a Star Wars movie with the wipes, just the ambiance of it. And keep in mind, I'm saying all these things and still believing that the prequels were bad movies, poorly directed, acted, etc. And they still felt like Star Wars movies compared to Force Awakens.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with that. Look, I think, in order just to give.
I mean, should we probably let's just get everyone in to get their first opening stanzas.
Yeah.
So, what's it called? Justin, man, hit us with your initial thoughts of the film.
Okay, how's my volume? Is it good?
Cool.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Awesome.
All right, cool. I'm just going off of what ICQ said. I actually 100% agree. I feel that the things that the prequels got wrong, this new trilogy sort of got right, but then they sort of overlooked other things and they kind of messed up in other areas.
What's that on your icon? What image is that?
Equilibrium.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, okay. And I just feel that this was, it all depends on what you're looking for. I got into a few debates with a couple people, and some people who I respect are giving this thing a 5 out of 5, perfect, and I find it interesting because it's like, if you go back and you watch some of the comments from Star Wars fans when Phantom Menace was coming out, they were saying the exact same thing, and they've done the sort of 100%, 180-degree backflip now, calling those films shitty, But when I was watching this thing, I sat down halfway through it, and I said to myself, this is a homage film. This is just something that people put together just to get these guys on screen again, And again, it depends on what you're looking for. I'm not looking to see Han Solo, age 70, still running and gutting, still, stealing things, running from people. It's like, I want to see General Solo. I want to see that these characters matured. I don't want to see the older version of what I got already. I personally, and just to wrap this up, I don't consider this canon at all.
All right, Phantom of Hope.
Well, obviously, thanks, HH, for having me here. It's a pleasure to be invited back to this roundtable at such a crucial juncture in time. Richard, it's always a pleasure to be at the table with you. ICQ should be interesting and exciting. The Merc, hello there. So there we go. Thank you so much. Well, what I will say is that obviously it's a very bad film. That's the truth. It's a very, very, very bad film on just about any level you want to look at it. Now, so as not to go into too much detail, but just to give a brief oversheen as to my sentiments. Did I feel bad coming out of that cinema?
Excuse me?
Yes. I felt bad. But I didn't feel the same depth of badness that came out of the Dark Knight and Rebel, because I've been broken down slowly over the years, from the prequels all the way through to this film. But what I would say is that coming out of the film is like George Lucas, and this is just tacking on to what Richard said, is that, and not sorry, ICQ, about it feeling like a Star Wars movie. When George Lucas told people that, yeah, they're still gonna need me because I kind of know how things work. I mean, I know all that stuff, like Force and lightsabers, and people kind of laughed at him and went, and I laughed at him and went, you know what? Listen, they just sold it for 4 billion. Trust me, mate, you ain't getting any phone calls, and that's the way it panned out. The guy didn't get any phone calls, but you'd presume that most people with half a brain shouldn't need Lucas to tell them simple points such as normal human beings don't hold lightsabers. If normal human beings hold lightsabers and start fighting with lightsabers, you diminish the majestic nature of the majestic esteem in which Jedis are held. These are simple rule things that break things down. So basically what I'm trying to say in a nutshell is that what you got is that you lost a certain understanding of, when you say, okay, Isaac, you said it felt like Star Wars, you were always going to lose that because it's not the guy that made it that's directing it. So that is your casualty when Georgie Porgy leaves. What you have to come with to try to make up for that is make a good film. You're a director, you're a movie maker. Make a logical movie with good dialogue that has a proper structure, that has a beginning, middle, and end, which was deficient in the prequels. At least do that. Now, what I saw was a movie that didn't make up for the lack of creativity, and was actually a bad film. So truth be told, I felt mesmerized, and I was stunned. So I can't say I felt bad because at the moment right now I'm still quite stunned because I'm shocked because this guy made MI3, this guy made Super 8, this guy made Star Trek Into Darkness in the first. Like, you've made films, so I'm not sure why you've managed to make a film that is probably the dumbest, most idiotic film. No, that is the dumbest, most idiotic film I've ever seen in the cinema before. So basically, that's my sentiment. I'm mesmerized.
All right. So basically, I feel that just to now actually get into like some actual points. Like, look, I got into the cinema. The first thing I noticed, like, I kid you not, like the movie started, and you know, I got the opening scroll, and I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm reading the opening scroll, and I'm telling myself that, okay, I'm reading this thing, and I'm like, okay, interesting. You know, this sounds interesting. Luke Skywalker, okay, so he's disappeared. They're trying to find him. And then it just hit me, like, when the first thing happened, like, you know, and you get that first scene with the big destroyer moving, I was like, hang on a sec. This looks very similar to A New Hope. That was like my first instinct. Like, was in my subconscious. I was like, this looks very similar to, and then I kept watching. I'm like, okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Then you get the opening scene and the village, and I'm like, okay, thank goodness it's not. And then obviously Podameron comes in, and then you've got the droid, and then he has the map, and then at that point the movie just kept going, and I started realizing that, wow, this is actually a carbon copy of a movie that came out in 1977. And I think the sickest thing about this factor, which I think a lot of people have picked up on about the fact that it is actually a remake and not a reboot or a sequel, is that you've had 3 movies, the original trilogy, then you had the 3 prequels, then you had all these years in between, you've had all the dialogue and talk and people slamming things and all that left, right, and center. How in the name of goodness can you not come up with something original? Yes. Like, that's what I don't understand. I'm like, you know that you've got all these little stupid little photographs of people with drinking coffee, of, you know, these guys like, ooh, they're doing the script, and we've got Kazdamba, got blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, like, what were you doing all this time with all that money, and you actually just did what any fan could do on his laptop? That's what blew my mind. I was like, wow, so what were you all guys all doing? And then, listen, when you really sit back and you think about it, and you look at the way that this thing essentially carbon copied the new film, you realize that no. This is intentional. This is not an accident. This is exactly what was what these guys were trying to do. So as a Star Wars guy, I'm thinking like, wait a minute, I feel like completely cheated here.
It's a magic.
Okay, I'm going to stop there because I don't want to go through each phase, but that's like.
I think initially, just to give like my overall thoughts on this, and then I think we should then go and look at like different aspects and points. For me, my fundamental issue with this film, without really going into detail, is that it's very simple. I had many issues with the film, but also on a very fundamental level, hero, villain. That's what Star Wars has always been about. Luke against Vader, Luke against Darth Sidious or the Emperor, Obi-Wan against Darth Maul, Obi-Wan against Jango Fett, Obi-Wan against General Grievous. So obviously, our hero and our villain is Rey and Kylo Ren. The issue is that the hero and the villain do not work. The hero is too strong, is amazing at everything, isn't really weak at anything, is badly acted by the lead actress Daisy Ridley, so isn't really charismatic, is not likable, and because she is so strong and so powerful, I have no connection to her. There's no connection that I have to her. The villain, all the villain does is, and these are facts, so nobody can argue with this. These are facts. This
you could argue with the likable thing because that's subjective.
No. Let me ask you this, HH. Do you think, is that a fault of Daisy's though? Because I think one thing.
Okay. Let me respond to that. It's like on one hand, no, because the way the character is written is stupid. She is unflawed and one-dimensional. On the other hand, in my view, if you put a better actress in there, the faults are still there. You're still too strong, but at least if you're a better actress, you can still perhaps like the little nuances that the character has, which is what a better actor would give you, which is what Boyega sort of gave you. Because again, I mean, I'll come to Bacon Finn and show you why for Daisy Ridley I still put her at fault because her acting was so bland and so one-dimensional. But going to the villain, what did the villain do? These are facts. You killed defenseless villagers. You killed an unarmed old man on a bridge. And you stopped a laser beam mid-air using the Force. That's it. Nothing you did as a villain made me fearful of you.
Well, you know what? Look, the Kylo Ren thing, you've got to look at it from the other perspective, in the sense that when you start the movie with Kylo Ren, right, you establish a guy who stops a laser beam in mid-air, then leaves it there, carries on about his business, drags Paul Dameron towards him with the Force. Then, I mean, like, do you know the kind of power that is compared to, and this is just based on the lore of Star Wars and what we've seen people do. So what we've seen Dooku do, Yoda do, Darth Vader do, when you see a guy do that, you're like, this guy knows what the hell he's doing with Force powers, right? So you're seeing that, right? And then he uses Force to extract information out of Poe Dameron's brain, something I've not seen before as well. So those are two things I've not seen anybody do before with the Force, right? So I'm sitting in the cinema going like, man, this guy is actually pretty serious. You know, we already know going into the movie that he's Han Solo's son. I already knew this before I even went in. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking that, man, this is some crazy stuff here. Now, a guy like that, you simply have to keep developing in that vein. The way the movie went, how does a guy like that then be incapable of doing combat with a stormtrooper who's never held a lightsaber before in his life? And then you lose, first of all, listen, he lost every confrontation he had, essentially.
Yeah, let's slow down.
You know? Anyway, sorry, go. Look, that's basically what I'm saying is that, look, you can't...
And I think basically, like, the point I was making was that those are just the fundamentals. And obviously, we can go into the details of what happened in the film, but on a very clear, fundamental level of what makes a good hero. The way the hero is written in this doesn't make you root for the hero. The way the villain is written in this doesn't make you faithful of the hero. Basically, if you're writing any hero-villain story, especially in the old school way of Star Wars, the first point of importance of a villain is you must fear him. You must show that the audience must be fearful of him. You cannot sort of humanize him or make people sympathize with him. You have to be fearful of him, then you build his character. You don't build his character first and say, oh, he's such an interesting character, but he's a villain. The first thing that he's supposed to be fearful. And if he's not fearful, and you're sure he's not fearful, then you've screwed up.
Well, you could actually argue two ways about that, because that some of the most interesting villains in movie history are people that are actually somewhat likable, you know, and actually have some character personality traits. Like the thing what you're talking about is the way that Star Wars villains typically have been, you know. And I think, listen, going on your point, this is the problem that I had with it. Is like, going on your point about making the villain fearful is like, that is still the issue. Yes, you've got to make him fearful, and I don't think that precludes you giving him a character. The real question is what kind of character you give him. You know, that's the real issue. It's like, if you don't handle the characterization of Kylo Ren carefully, you're going to end up with what you ended up having, where you're not fearful of this guy, and the guy, you don't have any respect for the villain. But I don't feel like that creating a fearful villain precludes you from giving him any characteristics.
Okay, let's hear from the other guys. Basically, your thoughts on Kylo Ren. So, Isaac Pim, your thoughts on Kylo Ren. What did you think about him? Strengths, weaknesses. How do you think about the character of Kylo Ren?
Out of all the characters outside of, I'd say, Han Solo, Kylo Ren, you know, in that movie, Kylo Ren may be the most, you know, developed character. You know, everything Merck said, you know, about Rey's character and all, I think BB-8 may have had more character development. You know what I mean?
But whose fault is that? Whose fault is that? I think you.
No, but that's just it. Well, it's not a fictional character's fault. It's the real life people who wrote this story. Michael Arndt, whatever his name is, his script was allegedly revised by Lawrence Kasdan and, of course, JJ himself. That's you know, I'm looking at Kylo Ren, and you can't have your female Luke Skywalker be undeveloped, and we have to, in modern movie terms, wait for the next movie to find out about that. Star Wars, you know, the '77 one, everyone was developed. You knew exactly what you needed to know about each and every character in that movie. There was no, well, who's this, who's that, and if there were characters that were quote unquote underdeveloped or whatever, or undeveloped, they weren't that essential and necessary to the story. I mean, you didn't necessarily need to know who Greedo was. You're watching this movie, you're wondering, well, who the hell exactly is Finn? Who the hell exactly is Rey? Where do they come from? This and this and that. All of that was established with Han Solo, Luke, Leia. You got just enough of what you needed for that particular story. This particular story, they don't even give the ingredients. It's like making food, preparing food. You know, you cook something, it requires ingredients, certain things. And if it requires 5 things and you're only giving it 2 or 3, it's not fully cooked. You know what I'm saying? And this movie, it's just movie making, storytelling 101, as you guys have mentioned to this point, fundamental things that this shit, is lacking. And it boggles the mind how they could do. I mean, these guys shamelessly made a New Hope remake. That's the new Hollywood credo now. They realize that, you know, people don't take kindly to remakes. You know, they don't like remakes. So what they do is they do a soft reboot, or a soft reboot. They do a remake through a sequel. That's what Jurassic World did. You know, same thing. That's modern Hollywood for, and it's sad to see the grand old lady known as Star Wars have to imitate Marvel's way of storytelling. You know what I mean? That's the worst part about it all.
All right. Okay. So, okay, Justin, what about you? Your thoughts on Kylo Ren, the character?
Um, I'll hesitate. I don't want to jump on this guy too much because I think he did good with what he was given. That bridge scene that he has with Solo, I think that was a good performance for what it was. But again, it's just my issue is the direction that was taken with the character, if that makes sense. But I don't know. It's just, for me, it's just the decisions that were made, that it all stems from, you could have done something much different than this. A lot of things just don't make sense. And it's just decision after decision after decision that led to this final product for me. It's just each of those decisions along the way, I completely disagree with. I disagree with the direction. I disagree with the story from Return of the Jedi. Like the Merc has said, you could have done much better than what you gave us.
All right. Let's focus it then. Like, at least let's actually.
Because we need to. I mean, Phantom of Hope. Then Kylo Ren. Your thoughts on Kylo Ren, the character?
Trash. Guy's trash. The guy's rubbish. It's very simple. Kylo Ren is a character. Villains, and this is the point I made in our preview, after we saw the teaser. The guy isn't scary. It's rubbish. Now, as the Meg said, we're looking at what sort of villains does Star Wars have. Now, I'm not saying this is what kind of villains does Star Wars have. I'm saying what kind of a property is Star Wars. Star Wars is a property in the vein of Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe, Lord of the Rings, Star Trek, Star Wars. Essentially, it's a fairy tale. Be it Sword and Shield, medieval, modern, fantasy, sci-fi fantasy, whatever you want it to be. In everything, Dune, you name it, the list goes on. In every single thing, you need the perception, and I choose the word carefully, the perception of pure evil and pure goodness. That's the fairy tale. That's what we need to see. And the fairy tales, they always have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, you might spread those out into 3 movies, or you might truncate it into 1 movie. But as I think Lucas said, you set people up, you present the problem, and then you suggest the solution. You know, these are the standard steps in any story. You need a beginning, middle, and end, a head, a body, a tail. You know, so what you have here in this is, because they've tried to run before they can walk, they've actually tripped over themselves. Because you need, in this movie, either you're going to make this movie about Kylo Ren or Ben Solo's transcendence into evil, where you see his character become evil, or he's evil. But even in the story, when you see his character become evil, he has to start as the perception of good, and there has to be a devil somewhere who draws him into the evil, because that's the fairy tale. So if you're going to bring out a film where nobody understands where the threat is, there is not a clear and distinct understanding of this. Fairy tales are for kids. They need, a kid doesn't need a three-dimensional goodie or baddie. A kid the kid needs Aslan, the lion, and he needs the evil witch. They need Dorothy, and they need the evil witch. They need Frodo. That's what the kids need. They need Sauron. Then maybe by part 3, later in the story, when we now start to understand humanity, then we see how these things might not be so clear. But you do not present a world or a situation or a problem without having clear, distinct orientating points within the story. And that's what these idiots have gone and done. You've started a story and nothing's clear. No one understands who's good, who's bad. There is no threat. And as I say, without serious threat, and why do stories have these clear good and evils? Because they know the kids understand good and evil, and they know the kids understand the threat of evil. So if you want to make a kid scared, you want to make a kid worried, a kid understand, oh my God, I hope the boogeyman doesn't come, you must understand what the boogeyman is. You can't have the boogeyman say, ooh, I feel like not being the boogeyman today. It doesn't work. So it doesn't work. They blew it because they were trying to be too clever. That's my point.
All right. Let's talk about the hero then, the main characters, the person who we feel is going to be the new hero of the story then. So, Mike, I mean, do you want to kick us off with your thoughts on Rey?
Yeah, look, I mean, and I think it's easier. Like, people should just chip in. Otherwise, it's going to be like just going round and round. Like, I think if anybody has anything that they want to chip in while I'm talking, please feel free to chip in.
Go ahead.
So basically, look, actually leans into the Kylo Ren thing. Like, okay, look, we had an original trilogy, and the original set up a problem. The original trilogy set up a problem with the Empire, the dark side of the Force, two Sith Lords, and the Jedi had all but been extinct, and you had one guy around, because remember, the prequels told the story of how they wiped out all the Jedi. So you have Obi-Wan, who's basically essentially like a relic, like the guy's on the run, he has nobody left, which is actually quite an epic story, which you sort of understand what Lucas was trying to do, that there were so many Jedis that by the time you get to A New Hope, there's just this one old man, which when you think of it is quite a crazy story. It's like, wow, the Jedi got shrunk down to an old man and Yoda in a swamp somewhere, you know, in Dagobah system, wherever the hell they found it. So when you think of it that way, and they set up this thing about essentially bringing back the Jedi, Return of the Jedi as it was, the third of the first trilogy, they triumphed over the Empire. They killed the Sith. They triumphed. How then do you go back to Episode 7?
Yep.
And there is the New Order, or whatever it is.
First order, because Abrams doesn't have any creativity.
Exactly, you're thinking to yourself that, you know what, with that action, and that's why when I saw that first ship glide in, I was like, wait a minute. So the original trilogy was a waste of time, because everything they did has just been negated in the very first scene of Episode 7, because these people look like they have more stormtroopers than they had in Episode 4. These guys look stronger than they were in Episode 4. They've got better weaponry. They've got more stormtroopers. They've got better ships. I'm thinking to myself that, what the hell did Leia and all these coconut heads do.
They look like troops in a Metal Gear game, man.
Yeah.
The way they were
How
lined up.
clownish! No, but seriously, how clownish could Leia and all these people have been? Lando and all these guys of what? How idiotic could you have been that you allowed this to happen?
Yeah, exactly.
You guys just beat the hell out of these guys, blew up the Death Star twice. You blew up the first one, and then you blew up the one that was half built.
Death Star.
The one that they were built in the process of building. You know, so you messed these
Yeah.
guys up twice. So I'm thinking to myself that so you started a movie where you basically said, yeah, guys. So the original trilogy and that whole battle, yeah, it was just a waste of time. Didn't mean anything. These guys are back, and they're back with a Star Killer, which is bigger than any of the Death Stars that they had before, and essentially they're stronger than they've ever been before. And that in and of itself was insane. So then you do that, right? And then you have this hero. And you have a hero where I'm like, guys, the whole point of, and this is why I said that you've just thrown out the rule book. Star Wars was built on giving you very close insight into who the protagonist was, where they came from, who their family is. So that's how you became connected to them, is that you figured out who these guys were. So whether from Anakin, you saw that in Phantom Menace, the guy, Qui-Gon had dinner with them, with his mother and father, like having a cup of tea. You actually got to know who his mother was, and like they were sitting down having a conversation. You knew where the guy's house was. You knew where he came from. Iconic scene in A New Hope. The guy is sitting down with his uncle and all this sort of stuff, and his aunts, sitting down eating, and he's talking about his life, and he's got his friend, blah 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 blah. How then do you go into this new trilogy, and then you're now going to create this mystery where we know nothing about this person?
Box. J.J. Abrams.
However, but think about this. Think about it this way. Okay, you're going to have a mystery. Then this person essentially needs to be truly interesting. This person has to evoke genuine interest in wanting to know who the person is, and every character that comes into contact with this person needs to be asking the person. Like, everybody should want to know who this person is. The person, because if you're not going to give us any history, everybody who speaks to her needs to drag out some piece of who the hell the person is.
But can I just make a quick add-on to what
Yeah. Go on.
Basically, from what the Mech is saying, the issue with this is that Abrams is treating this as, and somebody actually made this point, so that, you know what, this film is a great Netflix pilot episode. This is a TV episode, because when you watch like a TV episode, everything is a mystery, and you're like, oh, you know what, we're going to find something out in like episode 5 or
no, 100%, great points. Yeah,
it's like this is like a TV episode, and also in a TV episode where you've got like about 20 episodes, everything should be a mystery. And same thing with that he did in Lost, that, you know, everything's a mystery, and also because you know that this is going to be a story told over 20 episodes, you are acceptable of like where you don't really have any idea who this character is, what they're about. They're just giving little clues.
But you know what?
This is a film. This is an emotional picture film.
No, but you see, this is where I was going with this point. This could have worked if you handled it like The Man with No Name in the Dollars trilogy. The Man with No Name in the Dollars trilogy isn't a superhero. So you don't know anything about him, but he plays off pretty much everybody else. So really, The Man with No Name is actually not that interesting. He can't do that much except handle a gun well. But Indio or whoever, or the other bounty hunter, Lee Van Cleef or whatever, all these guys are so colored and interesting that is what makes the Man with No Name interesting. So he actually dupes people. He uses them against each other. He plays them against each other. The problem that they did here is that you give us no information about this woman, but then you turn her into Wonder Woman. So she can do everything. She's overpowered, but we don't know anything. So you're sitting there thinking that, what's the point of me even watching this? Because she's just so not in. Like, she can already do everything, but I don't know who this is. I don't know how she can do everything. But she doesn't need any of these other characters because she can do everything herself. So then what's the point of even having any of these other characters if they're not really interacting with the protagonist, helping her get to or do what she needs to do? Like, literally, she could literally have just walked through this entire movie with nobody else and done everything for herself. Because they keep drumming that into your head. I can do it. Don't hold my hand. I know where I'm going. I can handle myself. I'm like, geez, for goodness sake.
That's
get it. We get it, man. You're an independent woman. We get it. We know this. You don't need to. You're beating everybody. Fantastic. They used every single. Her dialogue is doing it. Her actions are doing it. The other characters are doing it. The story's doing it. Everything is just emphasizing how incredibly amazing this individual is. I mean, look, I'll let other people talk about the details of that, but that's my thoughts on that particular issue.
She no, I mean, that's Batman. That's always been my pet peeve about Batman is that everyone says, you know, and knocks Superman for having no flaws, and I'm like, when's the last time Batman got his ass whipped? You know what I mean? I mean, this girl is almost Batman's entire 76, 77 years in one 2-hour something movie. You know what I mean?
Well,
She
I
has
think you've
no-
got to think about. But think about this. Let me ask you this question. The thing about Batman, right, is that even though he doesn't get beaten up, you notice how they give you, even from the first episode, the first movies, they give you information about why he doesn't get beaten up. He's super intelligent, has
right.
gadgets that can. You know how each movie is. Each movie they establish the gadgets, and then you see him use the gadgets.
And also to add to your point, no movie is gonna end without a flashback to his parents being killed. It's part and parcel of a Batman film that you know here are his motivations. This is what made the guy become who he is. Like that, it's almost like the concept of Batman. His iconography goes hand in hand with the image of the kid on the floor with the parents. So I've never in my life ever seen a character like Ray who is omnipotent with no explanation. I've never seen it before in my life.
They tell you nothing, and it's like, how do you?
I mean, like all we've been given is that she was like stranded, and that's it. You were left when you're young, and that's it. That's all.
literally all you get.
No, but listen, but Isaac, think about this though. We've talked about this. What Phantom of Hope is saying, connect this with the idea that this individual is not even amazed at what she can do. She's never done any of this stuff before.
Yep.
And let's just even go through, like, you're flying the Millennium Falcon better than Han Solo. You're fighting with a lightsaber, you're beating a Sith. You're able to speak droid, Wookiee, and English. You're doing all of this
She
stuff.
understood Chewbacca?
Yes.
Wow.
And you're doing all of this stuff. And you're doing
I
all of
forgot
this
that part. Oh,
Look,
God.
man, she can speak 60 languages, man. 60.
This is what is so crazy about it. No, but this was so crazy about it. Okay, let's say I'm going to go, and I'm even going to ride with you on going in this direction. How does the character themselves not be shocked at what they can do?
No, but then somebody will claim, this goes into very complex areas, they'll claim maybe she knows, but she's not telling anybody. You see, here's what I say to those guys. It's like, okay, she knows who she is, but she's not telling anybody. But then why pretend as if the concept of Luke Skywalker is a mystery? The concept of the Force is a myth. So therefore, you're screwed on that level. And then let's go to the other level. How do you get to a point where Han Solo doesn't ask you who the hell you are? How are you able to do all this? How do you get to a point where by the end of the movie, this lady has blitzed everybody, beaten the leader of the First Order, and Leia doesn't say, "Excuse me, who the heck are you?" She just waves. She waves and lets this unknown lady go and find Luke Skywalker.
It is insanity.
It doesn't make any sense on any level.
Nobody wants to know. Like, I'm just like, how does nobody ask the question? Like, it's just so crazy. It's like, how you just let some street urchin, scavenger, come into your base camp and join your team, and nobody's trying to figure out, you know, this person flew the Millennium
Falcon,
scavenger, beat up people, escaped herself. I mean, listen, it's like, and you know, that's what I'm saying to people. I'm like, listen, it's not even about repressed memory anymore. Even if your memory is repressed on two levels. First of all, as you gain your memory back, you'll be shocked at like, oh my God, who am I? Whoa, you'll have some kind of reaction. That's part one. Part two about it is that you're doing things having already established that you believed all of this stuff wasn't even real. Like, you can't have those two things working together. You can't have a piece of dialogue establishing that this character doesn't even thought that the Force and the stuff was a myth. Oh, wait a minute, the stories were true? I thought it was a myth. If you thought it was a myth, it means that you've never even considered using this stuff before.
If they developed her correctly, what you're describing is a female Jason Bourne. You know what I mean?
No, but Jason Bourne, remember what they did with Jason Bourne, and this was done. This is a good example of that. Jason Bourne was constantly trying to figure out who he was. The movie was about his memories, and he was, as he got new things and was able to do new things from his performance, from the dialogue, he was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe what I just did. How did I do that?"
Yeah,
asking questions, and you're with him on the ride because you're like, and you're actually thinking, "Man, I wonder what he's going to figure out he can do next." Do you know that if they did that with Rey, I wouldn't be complaining. If that's what Rey was doing, and Rey was basically a Jason Bourne situation, so then I'd buy that. Oh, she probably already is a Jedi, and something happened to her, so she's lost her memory, but she already was a Jedi. I would still argue about all the other issues about the fact that she shouldn't be beating the main villain. I mean, look, everybody said it. Half Hope has said it. Phantom Hope has said it. Just Chosen One has said it. Listen, you ended the movie destroying the Starkiller base, destroying most of the stormtroopers who were on Starkiller base, having beaten the main bad guy, and the good guys cheering. What the hell is the threat that's left? There is no threat. Snoke. Snoke. You know what I'm saying? Like,
wait, very quickly, please. I need to quickly mention Snoke. Now, guys, Snoke, in my opinion, is one of the funniest characters I've ever seen in my life in any cinematic film.
PS3 quality.
Yeah, basically, so guys, just look at that. First of all, no, I skip it. No, this is actually serious. I'm not even like joking. The CGI on Snoke is on par with PS3 FMV. On
PS3. Yes, and how I tried to say was PS3.
I used to keep it. I'm not laughing. I used to keep. I'm being extremely serious.
No, it's
Yeah.
Okay, so his CGI, first of all, is on par with PS3 FMV. The second thing is that this was a character that J.J. Abrams went to lengths. It's a surprise. Nothing kept under wraps. Nobody knew anything. This was the big reveal. You were hiding for this. This was a guy who said that practical effects, real effects, we're going real. The CGI on Snoke is faker and worse than most CGI in all of those prequel films. And the last thing is this. The last thing is this: is that two things. If Snoke is really that tall, how the hell do you fight him? Second thing, if Snoke isn't that tall, if Snoke is not that tall, and he projects himself to be a lot taller than he is, then you've created a main villain who has an inferiority complex because you feel you need to project yourself ridiculously high to sort of achieve something of what. So basically, your main villain is stupid. Please continue.
Look, man. This Snoke thing. Let me think about Snoke. Okay.
And the name is crap, by the way. Carry on. Sorry.
Snoke. What kind of teacher are you? You let Kylo Ren out at that quality. This is the man that you gave charge of your entire operation to. That guy. What kind of Jedi Master or Sith Lord are you? Just think about it. Snoke. You trained this guy. First of all, which is also another messed up thing because they've demeaned Luke Skywalker's training quality. They've demeaned Snoke's training quality. If Luke Skywalker can train somebody and then that guy beats up all of Luke Skywalker's guys and then makes Luke Skywalker run away.
Wait, is that what happened?
Yes, he messed up Luke Skywalker's guys. Then Snoke takes Kylo, right? And does dark side training on top of the light training. So Luke has already trained him. Then this guy gets extra training, right? Okay. Then you have some person who's never done anything before in their lives mess this guy up. The way that he got messed up, this guy, he got laid out on his back. They laid him out, sliced his face, and people are going to flap their lips about about his injury at the hands of Finn, which was ridiculous. I'm like, look, Finn is a stormtrooper who's never fought with. Listen, I think it's so contradictory. You've told us that he works in sanitation, so sanitation workers know how to fight with sabers, and they can beat Sith Lords. Trash men. So I could go to the document man outside and send him to Iraq, and the guy is going to be a commando in Iraq. A trash guy. I mean, it's so crazy. It's like you've established that the guy was not even a serious stormtrooper. He was a trash collector. He was a sanitation guy. So a sanitation guy should have no.
Can I just add on to calling Snoke and these guys into question? I'm like, Snoke. You do realize that what's his face? Palpatine or Sidious is a Sith. Same as I presume Snoke, because I don't believe, I presume Snoke understands the dark, whatever you call it, because he's been training, whatever you call it. How in God's name do you have a guy who is this wayward psychologically and Snoke hasn't detected? Because this guy, Kyle, this dude was borderline schizophrenic. This guy is a liability. How can you have this man commanding your command when this guy is obviously... the guy says, I constantly feel the pull to the light. So I'm like, excuse me, you think Snoke hasn't worked this out with a guy that you're dealing with all the time? And then let's take Finn. What kind of ragtag outfit reappropriates janitors or canteen workers into your infantry? You guys have got, like, whatever you call it, genetically designed people to use. Are you that strapped for fighters that you're now putting guys from your kitchen into the army? This movie doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense. I mean, look, you can't and people are not even asking the question. I'm like, listen, you're throwing things in because and it's so simple. It's like you're damaging things by single sentences. The moment you do that for a cheap laugh, and listen, this goes into a very nefarious area. They made Finn a sanitation worker to diminish Finn, to carry on this idea of Finn being the comic relief, bumbling, he's a coward, he's running around, he's just trying to fit in, he's whatever, all that stuff. So you're so desperately trying to get cheap laughs out of this guy that you're ending up shooting yourself in the foot. Because the second he says that, it makes everything he's done before and everything he does afterwards a complete joke because the guy is a trash collector. So it's like, what's the point? So he said he's a sanitation worker, so then we're not going to say...
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Now I'm going to say that. So you're not going to say a sanitation worker fight a Sith Lord and injure him with a lightsaber? And then let's talk about this injury. In case any of the clown faces out there who claim to be Star Wars fans, who might have missed a movie called Empire Strikes Back, do you remember what Vader was doing to Luke when he realized that Luke was crap? Vader started cheating. He was ripping things off the wall and throwing them at Luke, and then he blew the window out, and Luke flew out. He was messing with him. He didn't even need to use his saber anymore. He messed with the guy. There was a point when Vader actually flew like Superman. You remember that bit in Empire Strikes Back? He flew. So you're like,
he floated.
This stuff, and I'm like, wait a minute. Why the hell does Kylo Ren have to use his saber? You know that Lucas is a very strong man because he actually did the same thing when Dooku was fighting Yoda in Clone. And then Dooku said, man, Yoda, you're pretty strong with the Force. I think the only way that we're going to sort this out is with sabers because you're so strong. That's how it works. Why are you going to how do you go to your saber directly? Do you know what sabers are? Sabers are for Jedis. You're not going to... How is Kylo going to look at a person who's not even a Jedi, has no training, and go for his saber? Oh my goodness, it doesn't even make sense. He looks at a stormtrooper with a saber, and then he pulls out his own saber to do combat with a stormtrooper.
I mean, basically, I think that from what the Michael was saying is that this is why, and also what Phantom of Hope said is that this is why you need George Lucas as an advisor.
Look, I was leaving Lucas.
Because basically, once you saw Finn with a lightsaber on the poster, automatically, because Lucas created certain ground rules to his universe, you presume this guy has to be a Jedi. if you now make a case where a regular guy can first of all use a lightsaber to do any sort of combat, you already diminish what the Jedi means. On top of that, if you now say that a regular guy can use a lightsaber and last more than a second against somebody who has been trained by both Luke Skywalker and Snoke, that means the whole thoughts and the philosophy and everything that was built up and was carefully constructed about Jedi, the lightsabers, and what this means is thrown out the window.
Okay, fine, but I'll say this. So when I do say, okay, yeah, you need George Lucas, I defy anyone to say that they could. J.J. Abrams is a grown man with a family and kids. He's a professional director. He's a guy who says, been on Dinner for Five, talks the talk, walk the walk, says he's a Star Wars fan. How can I presume that a whole J.J. Abrams will not understand these simple concepts? That surely you don't need George Lucas to tell you that the Jedi are mysterious. They are a level beyond regular. They're like monks. You know, they're like priests. So you have to keep them exalted. That is like ABC of any flipping fantasy. Like look at how elves are depicted in Lord of the Rings. Without them even going into details, you know, oh, these guys are just like, you know, ever living, you know, they're on this level, they don't really mix too much. It's like, how do you be given, even like, as you said, every samurai movie you've seen, a samurai sword is just a sword, anybody can have it. But how often do you see like some regular villager in like Seven Samurai or whatever you call it, running about with a samurai sword? It doesn't make any sense. It's like, these stories, you need to preserve the identity of whatever groups. Stormtrooper groups, commando groups, Jedi groups, whatever you call it.
Integrity, man. It's all about integrity.
But you know what they did, and I think this is the look. If your spine is rotten, you can't stand up straight. Okay. The movie is about a particular character that has no like Rey as a character. It's like you've given this character everything already. He's not had to train. I mean, these are things that, forget about it being a woman, because like we can talk about that. And you see, I'm one of the guys that I'm like, look, having a female lead character, I'm like, okay, fair enough, but that doesn't mean that you then change the rules. It's like there is a particular way in which a character would need to go. There's a process in order for you to legitimize every power you get, which makes the powers worth something. So this has not even got anything to do with it, even though we can go into the idea of like, hey, you know, female Star Wars lead, why? There's already Hunger Games, there's already Divergent, there's already Twilight, there's already all of these things. I don't even get it. Like, it's not like there's a dearth currently. There's Lucy, for goodness sake. It's not like that there's a dearth currently of female leads in fantasy material. Doesn't even. But anyway, look, regardless, we've known for years that Han Solo and Leia had a child, or had at least a twins or a child. So we already knew that. So we knew that that was coming in some way, shape, or form. We knew this for years, so whatever. But the problem is that you watch this movie from beginning to end, and I've actually talked to a lot of people about this. I'm like, what difficulty did Rey ever encounter that she could not either solve for herself or just simply bulldoze her way through? Nothing. Nothing for the whole film. So what are you really watching? You're essentially watching somebody's fantasy, somebody's superhero fantasy. I mean, they brought up the Mary Sue thing, Max Landis stuff has talked and everything. But I'm like, how does anybody watch that and then come away feeling like they watched something worth seeing? You know that even Commando with Arnie, Commando, which is actually probably one of the most ridiculously crazy overpowered characters I've ever seen in my life. Commando is talked of as like a super soldier. Like,
well, Commando is actually a comedy, so it doesn't really count.
No, I know. I'm using it to emphasize the point. I'm using it to emphasize the point. Like, Commando is actually not even a serious thing. Like, it's Commando. But even Commando did a lot of work in the beginning of the movie to explain why 5 people could shoot him straight in the chest and the bullets would not hit him. Which is basically what happened in Commando. So it's like, it sort of did the work to explain it. And then some people want to talk about Rambo. Rambo is probably one of the most injured men in the world. Like, Rambo does not make it out of any movie without severe injuries. Like, That's actually the hallmark of Rambo is the level of injury he survives. The levels of Rambo is going to get captured. He's going to get tortured. He's going to get stabbed. He's going to get shot. The idea. So I'm like, no matter what thing you look at, no matter what film, whether it's even Die Hard or whatever, the hero overcomes adversity, and that is what makes it interesting and fun to watch.
I actually do. Sorry, I mean, very quickly, just from the point I make before I forget. For instance, and also, this might actually be a bit scary. If, let's say, for some strange reason, 1980s Arnie was cast as Ray in this film.
Oh, God.
And he did exactly the same thing. This was exactly the same thing for it was Arnie. I would still have an issue.
No, it would suck. It wouldn't work.
But
that's what I'm saying. No,
but the thing was that I would still go away saying, "Oh, haha, that's funny," and I'll still sort of buy it because when you look at Arnie visually, you buy it. You're like, okay, that was bloody stupid. It made no sense, but you buy it because Arnie looks like a guy who can do the things that he does. But because this really looks like the way that she does, and
I would actually argue against that in the sense that this is so egregious that I don't think anybody gets away with this. Even if it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, I see him doing what happened in this movie. There is no Arnie movie that he hasn't the movie hasn't at least explained how and why the guy is doing what he's doing.
Exactly.
I mean, there's at least a bit of context.
No, but the thing is, like, even
can I speak on that? Can I add to that?
Yeah.
Real fast. Well, that's just what Merck said. Even if a movie, say Force Awakens, was called Ray the Warrior, Ray the Badass, Ray whatever, just Ray, right? If it's self-titled, you know what I mean? If it's self-titled Ray, then you already know going in this character is capable of something. The movie-going audience, we knew nothing about Ray. We didn't know. I mean, we didn't know. Mystery box as it's called. Abrams' style of storytelling. We knew nothing about her character. So when you see her doing all these things, you don't know that. When you see a movie like Predator, the movie is called Commando. If it's a pronoun or whatever, it gives you an idea of the lead character and what that person is capable of doing. Batman might as well be called Badass Man because you just buy the fact that he can do it. Batman Begins was a movie that showed you how he learned how to do all this through Liam Neeson and Ra's al Ghul and all that. But even still, even if they didn't have the League of Assassins or Shadows, you knew that you would accept going in before you saw the Warner Brothers logo that Batman is going to be able to handle himself. You don't need an explanation. With this movie, because Star Wars is a vague title, The Force Awakens, even in and of itself, and Episode 7 are vague titles. So there's nothing to work with. But Merck's right on the money with that. You need something. They give you nothing.
Yeah, but you see, that is, but you see now that goes.
I think that's what he was going to say.
It feeds into the overall ploy, and which is where I say things get very dark and dirty with this movie. When you do something like this, it really feeds into the whole movie by committee, focus grouping, commercialism, corporation style movie making with Star Wars that is so sad when you're a fan of Star Wars, because you're looking at the movie and you're thinking to yourself that, my goodness, man, this is Star Wars. This is in Avengers. This is in Iron Man. This is in Batman. This is in Superman. This is Star Wars. Like, Star Wars always had an identity, and the identity was George Lucas, which goes to where I was saying about George Lucas, that I feel so sorry for a lot of the insults I threw in that guy's face, because the guy was right. He was right.
Hey, Mark, can I ask you something? I was going to ask you to give some examples of films or, movies, productions by committee, and you did. I don't know if those movies that you named were examples of being made by a committee.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Let's just say they were. For example's sake, for a quick example's sake, let's say the movies you just named were examples by your definition of made by committee. Even those movies had explanations. You know what I'm saying?
But you see that this is the difference, though. When it's a committee, then you go into what the agenda is for that particular movie. The agenda for this film was very much centered on getting, first of all, installing an iconic female lead character in Star Wars. And they went so far over the line that they created a ridiculous character. Like, that was one of the main things they were trying to do. Like, they actually just went too far. So they just took it to 20th degree. Second thing is that they wanted to have a Latino. They did it. A first ever prominent Latino character is in it. Because remember, you had Jimmy Smits in the prequel trilogy. He didn't really do that much. But this guy, like Poe Dameron, is clearly a main. He's going to be a main character, but then he disappeared for most of the movie, for the middle part of the movie. And then you wanted a main black character, but you notice what they did with the black character is like, which is why I said it was it was all focused because you're looking at it and you're saying that this guy is the only character, and I want all of you guys to think about this. Is there any other character, main character in this movie that has no leadership, like he's not in charge of anything, he has no discernible skill, so he's not a great shooter, he's not a great fighter, he's not good at anything, and he has no identity. Like, so therefore he's just so it's like his name is FN something. So he has no identity, no parentage, nothing. That's one. He has no discernible skill, and he has no power. Everything he does is in relation to the power of other characters, which is very sad because you're saying that, wow, you created this black character in Star Wars, but clearly the only reason why this guy is there is basically to make guys like myself and other minority audiences who are coming to look at this movie to think that they're going to have some kind of representation in the film as a Jedi. Because it was a really dirty trick, because you put him on the poster with a lightsaber, and he's the first guy in the history of Star Wars to hold a lightsaber on a poster and not have the Force. And not
is that another thing that's confirmed though? Is he not Force sensitive?
They would have said so.
Chosen One, give me a break.
Oh, okay, maybe they say in part 2 he is.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Chosen One, damage is already done. Chosen One, that damage is already done. It's already done.
Hear me out. Look at how many things are unanswered. That is not a definitive point that he is not Force sensitive.
It is not you're categorically right. It's not a definitive point that he's not Force sensitive. What I'll tell you now is that
Chewbacca might be Force sensitive.
Exactly. Anybody can be Force sensitive, but one person they'll make damn sure you know is Force sensitive is called Rey.
Of course. That was confirmed in this movie.
No, but what
you know what? If he was Force sensitive,
why should we make any mistakes in those areas as to whether she is or she isn't? They let you know that, and they let you know that as Kylo said to Snoke, that this person is bloody powerful. So she's not just Force sensitive. She is that. This is one to watch. Listen, I've told whatever you call it. I told the Merc. I told
he ain't Force sensitive.
No. Right, I told HH, you're looking at a single character that these guys have given the guy zero ownership. This guy does not own his own profession. He's a stormtrooper. They say he worked in the canteen. This guy doesn't own his own name. He's given a name by Poe Dameron. This guy doesn't own his own jacket. Poe Dameron says it looks good on you, keep it. This guy doesn't own his own gun. Solo says, hey, keep it. This guy doesn't own his own lightsaber. He's keeping that thing on ice for Rey. You're looking at a guy who this guy has been stripped of any ownership whatsoever. And to be honest,
you know what? Okay, let me ask you guys, as honorable men, if you like a girl, right, and then you try and you talk to her, and then she's just not taking you seriously, and then you run and then you try and save her the first time. She says, "Don't hold my hand," twice. Then you run and try and save her from an explosion. She doesn't really thank you that much. Then you show her the right ship to go to. She blah blah blah. Okay, like. At which point are you going to stop?
Oh, hello, John Smith. Who's that?
It's me. I'm switching devices.
At which point are you going to stop chasing and have some pride? Remember that Han Solo liked Princess Leia, but they gave him dignity. Like, this guy, I'm like, why is this guy is risking his life? He's actually risking his life for somebody he just met that day. He met her that day. Listen, I don't care how amazing a woman.
I just wait,
Okay,
did you
I
know
am
what
not going to
something?
risk my life. What?
Wait, something just dawned on me. I think Finn might be the first male damsel in distress. Think about it.
No, he isn't. Like it's weird.
I think it's the first male damsel in distress that we've seen.
But okay, but in terms of you saying that, okay, give him some dignity, or whatever, call it that, he would. It's like it's one of those things that Han Solo's dignity in whatever you call it, in A New Hope, is the same dignity the guy had in Temple of Doom, the same dignity that Michael Douglas had in Romancing the Stone, is the same dignity that you see in all these movies. If you have these male-female characters, as they tell you don't hold your hand, you always come back with your own quip or your own, whatever you call it, your own comeback, which usually will infuriate the female lead even more. And it always culminates in the embrace and kiss at the end of the movie when they did blah, blah, blah. That's standard. This is the first time in history where she says don't hold my hand, he keeps quiet. Not this one, that one. No, not that one, that one. He keeps quiet. He just keeps holding up like a
guy couldn't even pick the right tool.
Like, this guy basically has got, this is a commando, supposed stormtrooper. This guy has got zero comeback anytime she cuts him down. Anytime she cuts him down.
Let me ask you guys a question, okay? And this is a thing that I've had an issue with a lot of these films, because I think it is the ultimate pandering, okay? So we know that you have issues and people are afraid to have black lead characters, and especially black and white, romantic leads in movies. We had Focus recently, but that's Will Smith, one of the biggest stars in the world, so he can do whatever he wants. Okay? You have this movie, and I'm like, you build up this romance thing between Rey and Finn, but then you have them move in, and then Rey hugs him. And then at the end of the movie, Rey kisses him on the forehead and makes sure to emphasize goodbye, friend. A thing I have never heard before in my life between a male and a female character in anything. Like, I don't think I've ever heard that before. So I'm sitting there thinking that, was that necessary? Yes, I think it was, to just re-emphasize to everybody watching that, hey, she's not interested. Listen, as we've all established here, we could have a episode 9 or episode 8 where these guys are having sex in the first scene. They could just decide to do that. No, I'm just saying that anything could happen. So episode 8 could begin like James Bond, and they're having sex in a jacuzzi.
Well, what I would say is that I've heard that they're looking for a mixed race female lead.
Exactly. Look, listen, I'm giving benefits of the doubt. I'm just being that guy because people will be like, well, you don't know that, they could just be building the romance and that she's pretending.
No, like, Rey is not going to have a romance. That is
no, but I'm just saying that, look, when you look at this movie, I'm like, how they left this guy in a coma at the end of the movie. Like, it's the final insult. You leave the guy in a coma, and she comes, and this man is in a coma trying to save you. So he chased you for the whole movie, and God ended up in a coma because of you. And then you kiss him on the forehead, and you say, "We'll meet again, friend." Are you serious?
And apparently, at one point, she asked him, "Why did you come?"
It is mind-bending. And the thing is that this is why I say it is so bad. If she had not said the friend part, it would have been ambiguous enough for people to think that she likes him romantically.
But they can't scrub it.
They can't allow that. That's the thing. So they had to add the piece of dialogue. Because I'm like, it's already bad enough you're kissing him on the forehead. You won't kiss him on the lips. No, oh my goodness, the world will explode. So you're going to kiss him on the forehead, but then you've got to add the piece of dialogue just to re-emphasize what the forehead kiss really means. Because some people, if you don't say that word, does she actually like this guy? Oh my goodness. It is stunningly crazy. But the thing is, about it, in closing, before anybody can jump in, look, this is what I'll say about this. Let's be real. The way that you establish this character, and people have been named, we've talked about Indiana Jones, all of these sort of things, but you create a masculine character that has bravery and courage and a particular kind of roguish identity that women would be drawn to, so that you can understand why the female lead would like that person. What you've done is you've created a male co-star, co-lead character who, when I think about it, why the hell would Rey go for this guy? Why? he hasn't done any, like, I mean, you've just, like, so it makes sense. Like, you've actually created a story trajectory that really Rey wouldn't go for him, she'd go for Poe, if anybody, like, or
Well,
someone else. Like, it's not going to be you or Snoke. Yeah.
well, I'm not going
What
to.
the hell? Wait. Did you just say Snoke as a love interest?
Yeah, Snoke.
Oh. Look, man, Snoke is easily the best character in
Snoke
that.
is obviously Darth Plagueis. Obviously, because that's J.J. Abrams' cheap. Abrams will search for anything that anyone has ever talked about that hasn't been used, and he'll use it. So somehow they're going to swing it that he's Darth Plagueis because they've been talking about Plagueis for too long. And my point is that look at what they've done. Like, you guys are like, it doesn't matter what in God's name they do. If they bring out Godfather 1 for part 2, it means nothing. They have nailed the final coffin in Star Wars. It's finished. Like, there's no coming back. You've thrown Han Solo off a bridge like a rat. He doesn't even get a funeral. The man doesn't even get a funeral. I'm like, the crimes JJ has committed against Star Wars in one film is more than Lucas ever did in his whole career. Like, JJ will have to, that man will answer for these crimes. I'm not sure how, but he will. Because when all this euphoria dies down and these fish scales start falling from people's eyes like their road to Damascus, this guy is going to feel a lot of heat because you made a movie so bad that my personal belief is that there is no pretense on this one, man. This movie
You could have summed up Finn, or you could have summed up Finn or The Force Awakens in one phrase with 2 words: droid, please. Y'all remember that in the movie?
Unbelievable.
Droid, please. That, I mean, you could have. When I heard that, and I saw Hollywood God's video. It was the first comment he made, and he was like, "See, you guys thought I was racist. It's not about race. I knew exactly what Hollywood would do if they made a prominent, major black character in that movie. They would symbolize."
You know what though? Think about it, ICQ though. Doesn't that connect with what I was saying? Where
No, exactly what you were saying.
Why does the only black character in the movie talk like he's from
Hell no. Are you ready for this?
Harlem or something?
And guys are going like, hell no is too street. And the truth is that hell no for me is a bit like Lando. Yes, we know it's street and it's from the real world, but it's something that Lando is allowed to do for me if Lando is bringing Billy D. Williams into Star Wars. Because there's a lot of phrases that are quote-unquote non-black phrases that over the years have been phased into sci-fi and have become sci-fi because they just say it anyway. There's no reason why something like hell no can go in.
No, it's the culmination. It's when you culminate everything. A guy who's saying hell no and droid please and who's the boss? Who's the boss? Who the boss? Who the boss?
No. But things are, and
when you add all of these things together in the same character, you're just like, come on, man.
Who's the boss? Which I told Have Hope. This guy has said who's the boss in a different way to that. There was a different take when he said, I'm the boss. My name's Finn and I'm in charge now. That's what the guy said, and that's on a toy that they released. So where's this new? Yeah, I'm in charge now. I don't know where that came from.
You know what I hate the most about Finn and his character is that John Boyega is Nigerian by blood, but he's, correct me if I'm wrong, British. You know what I mean? Where he grew up, cultivated his accent. In the movie, and I could be wrong about the British part. I could be wrong about the Nigerian part. I know I heard an American black kid who has nothing but white friends accent in A Force Awakens, and I'm like, this worldwide phenomenon movie paints not just black males, but black American males as pussies And that just like, I'm like, come on, man.
No, no,
But how
that
did
is
one kill me?
but that is
But how?
exactly that's a very good point because you've got to think about this. Let's talk about let's put this on the table. Let's put this on the table, okay? Let's put this on the table. So in the real world, black men are dangerous. The cops are scared of you. White people are scared of you. Everybody's afraid of you. You're getting thrown in jail at ridiculously high rates. You're brutish. You're depicted as thugs, as gangsters, as your sportsmen. You're the fastest. You're the strongest. You're all of this in the real world, right? But then you get into movies and you're wearing dresses. You're effeminate. You're comedians jumping up and down and laughing, and you're the sidekick. And you're like, I'm like, what's the correlation here? That doesn't even make sense. Like, by rights, if John Boyega is in the movie, shouldn't he be like the toughest guy in the movie? If you're connecting him to what the depiction of the black male.
He's a live action Jar Jar. No bullshit. He is a live action Jar Jar, man.
Binks.
So that is what is so interesting to me. It's like how you know, on so many levels it's subversive because you're looking at it and you're thinking like, you know, somebody brought this up and I thought it was very funny, but it's interesting. They were like, it's like he's a runaway slave. And I was like, damn. Because like, look at him, he was sweating and he's running and he's trying to get away from the master. And I was like, whoa, okay, look, hang on. I was laughing, but then I thought about it and I'm like, you know, that's kind of a stretch. Like, I didn't go there personally in my brain, to be honest. But then when I looked at it, I thought about it, I was like, you know, there are definitely on a subconscious level trappings of those sort of that sort of imagery, especially when you think of the fact of like, okay, I thought it was what they were going to do was they were going to have like an interracial relationship type thing, and I thought that was going to be really interesting for the movie. But for some reason, that it went in the direction we've already talked about, and when it went in the direction we've talked about, then it becomes really problematic. Because then you start looking at it and you're thinking that, look, if you're going to have a white female lead and a black male co-lead, if you're not going to play into the stereotypes, you're going to just have to treat these guys like you would any other male-female co-lead in a fantasy movie. There has to be genuine, like even from Lord of the Rings to Star Trek there has to be a kiss in the movie. There has to be some sort of giving the guy some masculine traits and things. Like, you've got to do all of these things, but you can't strip him of all of that and then that is what was so crazy to me. So you're watching and you're thinking to yourself that on all levels I can't see the point of this character being in it.
Wait. Very quick question. Did Finn ever save Rey once?
No, yes, he made sure that she didn't run into that building that got blown up. Oh no, wait a minute. He didn't really save her. Sorry. Oh yeah, he did. He pushed her out of the way.
No, because like I don't ever remember actually the male character who's supposed to be a soldier ever saving this other female character. Because remember, Luke was saved multiple times.
Luke got saved all the time.
Because people like to always say that, you know what? Oh, like how different is Rey from Luke in A New Hope? Luke, without Obi-Wan and Han and Leia, Luke would have been nowhere, or probably been killed. So Luke was saved on multiple occasions. Rey, basically, where this film lost me was where Rey was captured by Kylo Ren and she freed herself.
Oh, no.
Basically, Han Solo and Finn, basically, you traveled all the way to this planet, and they basically saw her pretty much abseiling out of her captives and said, wait a minute. So they traveled all the way, and they didn't even. So she actually freed herself. That's when I say, you know what?
By that point, I was way. You know that this is how I knew that. You know that the ending of the movie, I don't know what happened with the Starkiller base. That's how out of it I was. Like, I saw some X-wings flying, and then the next thing I knew, the Starkiller base was getting blown up. I don't know what they did.
Look, no. In that sense, do you realize that millions of people were killed? And I forgot about that. Only when I read about this. Wait a minute. I think 5 planets got destroyed. Because Abrams didn't really fully enunciate the fact that 5 planets just got destroyed by this Starkiller base or whatever. You were like, I forgot about it.
No, I did see that, but you see, the thing is, look, which is why I said it was like Avengers and all these other movies. I did see that scene, but the thing is, because nothing is really connected by a developing story and things are literally just happening.
No.
Your
This
brain is
isn't
not.
like Avengers, man. No.
Oh yes, it is, man. Because
No.
those movies, that's a characteristic of modern big blockbusters. Like things tend to just happen. Like it's set piece after set piece.
But still, in Avengers, you still see the effects from characters. You didn't see really any effects. Characters didn't really show any reactions to what was happening.
I mean, fair enough, but I'm
At
just
least you saw shit
my
get blown up in Avengers.
my feeling when I watch Avengers and all these movies is that I don't really feel much when I watch them because things are just happening. I don't really listen. When you watch A New Hope, everything is building up to the next thing, and then everything builds up to the next thing. So you actually feel invested in the narrative because you understand what they're doing, and it takes time to do. Remember the whole iconic scene of Han Solo and Luke and everybody in the trash compactor? Like, that was a big thing. And it lasted like, I don't know how many minutes of the movie that they were trapped in there, and C-3PO was trying to, and R2-D2 were trying to shut it down. And then there was, I mean, just that in and of itself, the movie gave time for a scene like that to unfold and to develop, which you didn't get in this thing because it is being made like every other movie is being made now. And the irony is that the prequels is the same way as the old movies were. They just weren't good, but it was the same techniques. Like scenes in the prequels, you actually could sit and watch it and take your time to absorb what's happening. But so many ridiculous things were happening within the scene that you're like, this is silly. Like, oh, you know, but it was just a different philosophy. So watching this movie now, you're sitting there, you're thinking, oh man, you know, Starkiller Base is getting destroyed. I do not know what they're doing. I don't know where they're flying. I see a bunch of things flying all over the place. They're shooting things. What's going on? Who's where? Boom, it's blown up. That is how it felt to me. Like I didn't even know. I didn't understand. A New Hope, though, that trench thing, my goodness. By the time Luke even got in the trench, like it was like a whole odyssey. By the time he even got in there, down because they were fighting before they even got into the trench. Then they get into the trench, and that's a whole other battle in and of itself, where Biggs is getting blown up, this other guy's getting blown up, and I'm like, that's a scene right there. It's a thing. The entire movie in A New Hope stopped to then become that thing. It was all about the trench and getting that shot into that tiny exhaust thing. Not what it is.
I think, I mean, Havop has said this as well, and I'm asking others. Has anyone stopped to tell them that, listen, you were building a Death Star in A New Hope, it got blown up by the rebels, then you started building another Death Star in Empire, which got blown up by the rebels in Jedi, and you'd already started building another one earlier one in the prequels, which got blown up by the rebels. Then your eureka moments when you said, I know what we're gonna do. So 30 years later, we're gonna build another Death Star. It's gonna get blown up by the... I'm like, well,
You know the problem? Oh, I'm sorry, Phantom.
no, that's it. I personally don't get it. So
I don't like the fact that I think it has to be like comic books or even Tolkien and Lord of the Rings. The Star Wars universe is entirely too small. My friend said this about before Friday, before the 18th or the 17th, whenever, before the movie came out. I'm tired of the Skywalkers, man. You know what I mean? This is a galaxy. A galaxy. I don't care if it's far away. I don't care if it's right next door. It's a galaxy.
no, but
Oh, you know what? You know the danger of that.
I think you're saying that because the Skywalker saga has been handled so badly.
Yeah, because you know what? The movies are actually it's a family movie. Like,
And that's the problem. In my opinion, that's the problem because you run the risk. And hold on. Look, these movies didn't just start repeating themselves and regurgitating scenarios last week. You know what I mean? They did this going back to '83 with Return of the Jedi. It was just a not so thinly veiled remake of episode Star Wars, of the first one. You know what I mean?
You know
And when
what?
you
Yeah, but
really,
no, but you could say that, but you see, I would not go as far as that because I would say I could see what Lucas was doing. It was a circle. So Jedi was intentionally supposed to be a repeat of the first movie because it was a circle. It's like Luke had to do those things in order to close a circle, which is what he tried to do with. Listen, it's like what was just said is like the prequels were supposed to be as another cycle so that we could, when you join 1, 2, and 3 with 4, 5, and 6, you see how history repeated itself. You know,
Right.
that is what Lucas was trying to do. And the idea that Lucas was doing is that this is have you ever seen Dynasty or Dallas?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's that is what he was making, which is what made it so special. It's a massive family
Soap
drama.
opera.
Yeah,
Yeah.
massive
Yeah.
family
Yeah.
soap opera. Now,
Yeah.
once you lose that, you lose Star Wars. That is the reason why Lucas doesn't make a Star Wars movie every week, because the movie is not designed to sustain itself over a yearly installment. So, us idiots, like myself included, like I'm an idiot, because I believed I knew better than George Lucas. So I was looking at Star Wars and I was saying, he messed up the prequels or whatever, whatever. I'm a fool because no, no, no. The reason why Star Wars was so good is that he knew what he was making, and what he was making is a family soap opera dressed up in all this whatever, whatever thing. That's why it was so sweet. It's like it is a soap opera, like J.R. Ewing and Bobby Ewing and all this sort of stuff. So when you try and take it away from that and try and make it this massive galactic thing with all of this stuff, that is why I never really liked Clone Wars. I didn't like the cartoons. I didn't like any of this other expanded universe stuff because then
Yeah.
it just loses its power. The power is in Vader and his son Luke Skywalker and his father, and when he was Anakin and he turned to the dark side, and his son is now trying to pull him over to the dark side, and then his children. That is where the juices lie.
Right.
That is
And
where it lies.
oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say I would agree with you on that because you just said I would let that slide and let that explain and sustain, Jedi's existence. And as you just said, everything else that followed after Jedi, was unnecessary. I mean, because it's a it's a story. It's like if I send you a message on, Facebook Messenger, any kind of messenger, any kind of way I send you a message, it's supposed to be seen or sent. It has an expiration date, in other words. You know what I mean? I don't send you that message 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 5 months from now, 5 hours from now. It has an expiration date. There's no other way I can, phrase it or describe it. And with these movies, if you don't have more, let's just say, members in the chat, so to speak, you know what I mean? You're running out of things to say or stories to tell, and they're just regurgitating. Well, I mean, goes without saying. That's what we started off saying. This thing, it's a thinly veiled. It's a
Well, you know what?
reboot.
I would say this though, and this is what I would say, and this actually goes to the Abrams and all this other stuff talk that we're having. The way that you would actually take Star Wars and continue it would take a similarly or somebody with a truly creative mind, and that takes talent, and it's a very specific kind of talent. Somebody who would take the story and instead of coming up with genuinely fresh, basically it would be a risk. Like somebody would literally have to come out and take a risk and actually create a new story, and that could fall flat on its face and fail miserably. But that is the
You know
only
what? If they were taking risks, then there would be no Star Wars movies because I thought about it. I'm 36. My dad's 67. He's about 31, 30, 31, 32 years, whatever, older than me. When he was in his late 20s in 77, if I do my math right, when Star Wars came out. And I was just thinking to myself, in my age, when I was my dad's age, if I'm saying that sentence correctly, he was getting original movies, From my 20s and, up until my 30s and all that, all I'm getting is remake of remake of remake of movies that came out either when I was a kid or in my teens in the 90s or before I was born. I mean, how Star Wars came out last week, a new Star Wars movie. And that's the problem with it. If there were risks involved, they wouldn't be for Star Wars. They would be for a new concept. It'd be a book or a script that, as you said, has risks, but Hollywood is far too afraid and scared. First of all, risk, make a Star Wars movie, but don't make the black guy every stereotype under the sun. That in and of itself is a risk. You know what I mean? Make a well-developed female character. That's a risk. I mean,
Not today. Today,
it's a joke,
that is a sure win. You make any kind of female character today, you're going to be running all the way to the bank. I can tell you that much.
No. I think basically the world of film has changed. That's why it's very dangerous when you look at what this film is about, because when you look at the kind of money this film is making, how people are reviewing this film, because what Disney have done, because this is going to come out. Rogue One is going to come out I think a year from now. Then they're going to get Episode 8 in May 2017. These guys are going to just take this thing to the bank, and because remember, this never happened under Lucas. You got a film every 3 years, so it was something that made sense. These guys are going to pump the Star Wars thing. They're going to put this marketing machine on full throttle. And from what you were saying, what's it called, ICQ Pimp, is that originality, that ain't going to be coming in anytime soon, especially when you see what they're going to be doing with Star Wars. And because they made so much money with this, they're going to be taking even less risks. Because this is one of the most safest films I've ever seen in my life, where there were zero risks taken in this film. And look at how much more money they're making. So remember, you have to look into the mind of these business people, because when they think about business, they've made a safe film void of any risks, and they're making stinking money. Airheads, idiots, are looking at this film, saying this film's got plot holes, saying this film is a remake, and they're watching the film four times. That's the issue. People are watching this film multiple times, and they admit it's a remake. They admit that J.J. Abrams is saying nothing new. They admit that this thing is just a retread, but they're still watching it 4 or 5 times. So that is the danger that we're having here. That is what the end game is.
Well, I mean, look,
they're applying the Transformers defense strategies to Star Wars. You know what I mean? We know it's stupid. We know it's blank. We blank anyway. We support it, love it, watch it, etc. Give our money to it anyway, man. It's sickening, man.
I mean, look, this thing that I think amazes me the most about this is that, okay, so you have all these fans, or so-called fans anyway, who say that the movie's amazing. You've got all these people trying to defend it and everything. If you say you don't like the movie, you're getting attacked. I've never seen a movie get 95% good reviews from critics in my life at this stage, when so many reviews have come in. This feels like a machine at work. It's like, I've never seen anything like this, where actual critics are writing, bullet points of how to defend against the haters. Who does that? Why would a critic write an article about how to defend against people who don't like a movie? What the hell is that? I'm just like, this is a crazy situation that's going on, where you're like, everything and everybody is doing overtime to make this something,
Or actually, no, just a very quick. I mean, I think we're coming up to an hour and a half, so probably just for the live cast, probably just pretty round up, so that I can just basically save this onto YouTube. So, and then we can still carry on talking, but just for the live cast, just a quick roundup of thoughts on the film.
Well, look, why round off is that, it's very sad what has happened to Star Wars. I'm done now. I'm finished. I retire. It's over with. I'm done. It's game, set, match. It's very sad. I didn't think any single movie could retire me, but I've been retired, I can't believe what I watched. I am truly stunned at what I watched. But in closing, I want to say this, right? And I made this point earlier. I said, what's happening in the movie world, in genre and fan business, is very, very disconcerting. Okay, there was a group of guys called geeks and nerds and idiots when they were children, right? And they were always, left in the classroom reading comics and playing with toys, when the cool kids were out playing football and getting the girls and all that sort of stuff, right? These guys were buying Mask, Transformers, Thundercats, Star Wars figures, go cartoons, read the comics and everything. These are the guys who, through their teenage years and their 20s, these franchises alive. Ghostbusters, Predator, all of these things. They kept it alive. Man, Superman, all this sort of stuff. Now, the question that I'll ask, right, is that when people are now clamoring and saying that you have to have female leads, why can't you have female leads in Star Wars? Why can't you have female leads in all these things? And I'm like, well, I'm actually not against like the equality stuff. And I feel like, look, there is no real reason. But my question is like, is the female audience clamoring for this? Or are you trying to sell something to them? That's the real question. Because if you're trying to sell something to people, then that is a problem. Because it's not like they're like, there's a clamor like that. No. I believe that, listen, have more female directors, more female producers, more female writers, give females the power to create their own stories, tell their own stories the way they want to tell them, with who they want to tell them with. And then you'll truly find and see interesting new franchises and interesting new material. Hunger Games, for example, Twilight, a guy wouldn't come up with that. So I'm like, it's interesting. It's like a female written thing. So it's like, oh, okay. So I'm looking at that and I'm saying that when I look at this, I wonder to myself that, is this going to create genuine female Star Wars fans? And when I say fans, I'm talking about real fans in the same way that there are male Star Wars fans. So that when it's in the cinema, you have a choice between Pitch Perfect 3 and Episode 9, would they choose to watch Episode 9 instead of Pitch Perfect 3? Are they going to go and watch both? Because I can tell you damn sure, young boys are not going to go and watch Pitch Perfect 3. They're not.
No.
All right. So,
okay. Anyway.
Justin, or chosen one. Final words.
Oh yeah, not much to say. It's just wasted potential. Again, I keep going back to the point of they had enough material through the expanded universe and some additional things, comic books, that they could have really put together a worthwhile story that follows Return of the Jedi, and I'm disappointed.
All right, Ice Cube Pimp. Final words.
Hey, I'm here. Sorry about that. I think with this, in terms of the marketing and their approach to selling this movie to the public, I think this movie is in the Joe Schumacher, Christopher Nolan category, and people hated the backlash against the prequels was so severe. You had celebrities, okay? Celebrities dissed Batman and Robin, but you have the Simon Peggs of the world dissing publicly on record, on camera, in text, audio, etc., dissing, Phantom Menace, George Lucas, the prequels. And when you have that, people, they don't even lower the bar to where it's, they lower the bar to where it's invisible. It's no longer there. There is no bar or standard to cross. And when, Batman Begins came out, people hated they hated Schumacher so much. It was simple. That's what I hate about this. I don't care what race or gender or person or whatever God they do or do not believe in a movie. You have to have a good idea, all right? And that was what Merck was pointing out earlier, man. It's all about good ideas. I don't care. He said it himself. I'm not putting words in his mouth. It's a bad idea to have an undeveloped character. A character that's just omnipotent. Even Superman has kryptonite. She had nothing. She had a flashback, and that was it. I think her biggest struggle in the entire movie was trying to hand Luke the lightsaber at the end of the movie. He just stared at it. You know what I mean? So, you can't, this movie, and even Finn, because I say, you know what? It's not that Finn was black and that, the stereotypes that were attributed to him happened to be black male stereotypes. But if you remove his race and his gender and you swap it for white and a female, he was essentially the female character, weak and needed other people's help.
Male damsel in distress.
Male damsel in distress. There you go. And that was it. And fuck Star Wars. Fuck.
All right, what's it called? Phantom Hope. Final words.
Okay, look, Kathleen Kennedy. I'm going to tell you very, very simply. I do not agree with the girl in Star Wars. There should not be a female lead in Star Wars. I said this at the end of the preview, and I'm saying it again now at the end of our review. Same as what I said at the end of the preview. Kathleen Kennedy at Women's Most Important Summons meeting about 6 months ago said 8 out of 10 of the new writers on episode 8 and 9 are going to be female. She goes, ooh, you might be surprised, but yeah, 8 out of 10 are going to be female. She goes, since I got to control of Lucasfilm, every single person that has called me saying that, oh, I want to direct, have been male, and I think that needs to change. So I want women to pick up that phone and give me a call. You see, there's a problem there. My argument is an argument of fanaticism. The argument of fanaticism states that in '99 you come out with Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace was sold out Fandango. Why? Because for some reason the desire, the hunger for Star Wars was maintained and sustained from 1982 all the way to 1999. 2015. Force Awakens, you're coming out, it's sold out again because for whatever reason the fans have maintained this hunger for it because, hey, guess what, they really want it. How do you achieve a fanatic is the question. How do you achieve a fanatic? If Titanic gets re-released, it makes another 100 million. It ain't guys watching it, it's girls watching it. If you bring out a new Twilight in the next 10 years, it's going to get pre-booked and sold out. Why? Because girls are hungering for that. Now, what have you gone and done? You've now want to remove the special ingredients because remember, George Lucas said he thought of a 12-year-old boy when he made Star Wars. Now, he preached to that biological disposition of the young male, and that's what he gave him with the sword, with the evil demon to slay and the princess to save. You've removed these core elements from this drug, which essentially Star Wars is for a certain geek guy fantasist. You remove that drug. You've created a new cocktail of drug now. Now my question is, okay, let's see who becomes fanatic about this watered down diluted drug, because you've done something that isn't potent for either gender, and let's not pretend that all genders are the same. So when you put out a watered down drug that doesn't hit anything right at the core, you will not get the fanatic that will wait 20-30 years for a continuation. That's my final point.
All right, and my final point here pretty much is my thing is that I'm more of a fan of The Matrix than I am of Star Wars and so forth, but I am more of a film fan than a Matrix fan. I'm more of a film fan than an action fan and everything. The most important thing that matters to me if I pay cash to watch a film is be a good film. I don't give a damn how good of a Star Wars film you are, or what other kind of Star Wars things you've got in your film, or how many of the little Matrix tidbits you've got in your film. The first part of call is make a good film. Make good characters. Make a compelling story. Make me care about the characters. Make me care about the story. Have dramatic beats in the story. Make me walk away from the cinema thinking about your film. What they've done is they've made an episode. They've robbed me. They made a TV episode. They didn't make a film. They made half a story. And they're telling me that in order to fill in all the blanks, I need to wait 2 years to pay more money to watch the next episode. I need to go and read the books. I need to go and buy the comics. And for me, that is robbery. That is cheating. That is not what films are about. And in that sense, that is why I think that this isn't The Force Awakens. This is the Farce Awakens. And hopefully more people can listen to this, listen to the thoughts that have been said by all of us here, which I feel is true, and they can put down that blue pill and take up that red pill. All right, and there we go.